Okay, so we move from one um, we move from one thing to the other, and so I'm going to just put these pictures up here. So we have, when I say we, when I always say we, guys, I'm referencing the audience as far as um, a whole. So we have had a lot of great action heroes over the course of the last, I would say, 30, 40 years, right? But we're starting to get to that point where there aren't that many A-listers anymore. I mean, back in the day, you had, and you probably just saw the picture. You had Sylvester Stallone, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, you had Bruce Willis, you had Harrison Ford. We don't really have that anymore. We've got a couple of guys. I mean, hell, even Liam Neeson, you know, taken for, let's call a spade for a minute. Taken resurrected Liam Neeson's career. If you take a look at what his filmography is after Taken, he did a boatload of action pictures. Whether it is, and by the way, that was a franchise for him. Taken, Taken 2, Taken 3, The Commuter, The Gray, Run at Night, Run All Night. He did a lot of pictures. So, but beyond that, I would even call the A Team an action picture, okay? Which I loved. All that being said, I think that, we are starting to, um, we don't have any A-listers anymore. So Harrison Ford, and we're going to stick with the whole Cannes Film Festival thing. So Harrison Ford, of course, was at Cannes for the premiere of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And so this comes to us from um, Variety. And basically, this talks about how the article is entitled, "We Used to Treat Movie Stars Like Gods. Hollywood Grapples with the Loss of Young Star Power." The hottest package at this year's Cannes Film Festival stars a 76-year-old action star in a reboot of a movie that first dazzled moviegoers in 1993. That's a time, in case you forgot, before TikTok, smartphones, Facebook, or Amazon, or any number of the technological changes that have reshaped our world and movie business along with them. And yet, Cliffhanger, with Sylvester Stallone bravely mounting the summit, is seen as one of the most commercial scripts out there that buyers were hoping to make an adventure film that could traverse borders and bring crowds in. With a nod to the younger audience who will be needed to turn it up if the movie is going to replicate the original blockbuster status, the producers tease that the casting is currently underway for presumably a younger actor to share the screen with Sly. But who will that be? Over the last 10 years, we've done a really shitty job of creating a new generation of movie stars, said one sales agent. And a look at some of the projects that are premiering on Cannes seems to bolster that argument. There's Breakout, okay, starring a 75-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger, um, that will be directed by Expendables filmmakers Scott Wall. Lord of War, starring a 59-year-old Nicolas Cage, returning to a role as an armament as he first played nearly 2 decades ago. Now, by the way, that picture I'm showing you guys right now is from Face Off. That's Amora, a rom-com with a 69-year-old John Travolta and the rivals of the Amazon King, a crime story featuring a 53-year-old Matthew McConaughey. In most cases, these actors have been famous globally, so since the 70s or 80s. McConaughey, a relatively newbie, had to wait till '96 from made his mark from A Time to Kill. On Thursday night, the increasingly generic nature of the star system was on full display as the Cannes Film Festival hosted a Harrison Ford's red carpet for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Um, as this was one of the first times he walked the red carpet since the premiere of course, Raiders of the Lost Ark back in 1981, and is still well preserved enough to be unabashedly off the top. I've been blessed with this body, he said sheepishly when asked about the shirtless scene at a press conference. Ford does get an assist from some of the key technological breakthroughs, appearing 35 years younger in key scenes thanks to the magic of de-aging CGI. But why hasn't there been a flowering A-lister to rival the Fords, Schwarzeneggers, and Stallone of yesteryear? Protagonist Pictures COO George Hamilton points to the collapse of the DVD business in 2008 as the moment when Hollywood stopped being able to make reliable movie stars. Nearly all of the actors and actresses who are bankable now have very successful films when DVD and videos were a huge force, said Hamilton, who has shown several films at the film festival, including Polly Finley's debut feature, Midwinter Break, starring Leslie Manville, and that's just one of them. So you can see that there's a dividing shift in terms of older and new generation. With the new generation, there's more divisions between success because you can have the most watched show of film on a streamer, but there's still a whole new swath of society who may not subscribe or be a part of that. In 2008, just as DVD sales began its death spiral, the first Twilight movie debuted, and the franchise's next-gen stars became the centerpiece of the market packages for years to come. But nearly as all those packages ultimately fizzled in the marketplace, today only Robert Pattinson, who's 37, could carry a big budget package to the goal line on his name alone at a market like Cannes because of the combination of his box office credentials, Batman, and critically acclaimed indie films such as Good Time. Kristen Stewart has earned critical raves in such films as Spencer, but has basically focused on smaller films instead of the tentpoles. By the way, one of the films I really enjoyed her in was Charlie's Angels. That's not a film that everybody really likes, but I love Charlie's Angels. The new iteration of it by Elizabeth Banks was awesome. I loved her in that. So, the most promising members of the up and coming A-listers. Okay, I'm sorry. The most promising member of the up and coming A-listers said often to need to check multiple boxes, like a Sydney Sweeney, who's 25, who boasts not one but two talked about series in The White Lotus and Euphoria, as well as the superhero cred featuring her starring upcoming role in Madame Web, a spin-off of Sony's Spider-Man franchise. Meanwhile, the sales agents think that some of the shrinking movie star phenomenon has to do with the long-term contracts of the rising stars, such as Tom Holland, Chris Hemsworth, and have appeared in Marvel movies. Others, such as Ryan Gosling, who's 42, have been inconsistent at the global box office, despite commanding passionate followings, while Timothée Chalamet scored with Dune, but remains somewhat of an untried commodity. I think when Wonka comes out, we're going to see if he can really carry another picture like that. Michael B. Jordan, who's 36, has two franchises under his belt, Black Panther and Creed, but remains to be seen whether he can carry a film without a well-known IP. Likewise, Jennifer Lawrence will have a huge test regarding her bankability with the new rated R comedy No Hard Feelings. Post Hunger Games, she was a huge draw, but she has been active and on the screen in recent years. The agent believes that the streaming services don't know how to apply the right amount of varnish on promising talents, in part because the movies that debut on Netflix or Prime Video don't have the kind of massive global campaign that accompanies major theatrical releases. We used to treat movies like gods, he said. The marketing of the streaming films is so limited that it really creates stars. Actors aren't burned in the minds like they once were, and they don't have this larger than life image anymore. Okay, let's talk about this. Because there are a lot of things to say. He said a lot of things here. Number one, he's right. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. He's absolutely right when he says all these things. There are no more, and this is what I was saying the other day. The fact is, okay, we don't have any more movie stars today. There are no more movie stars. Tom Cruise is the last movie star we have today. It is not Sylvester Stallone. It is not Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's 76 and he's close to 70. Okay. And, you know, don't get me wrong. The thing about Stallone is, look, he's done 20, 30, 40 films, and they were all incredible. Well, maybe not all incredible, but they were a good part, whether it's Rocky or The Expendables, okay, or in the Creed franchise. He did very well. But he's not that same guy anymore. He just isn't. Okay? He was a physical guy. Hell, I forgot about Rambo. Okay? Arnold, he's 76 years old. He's not that same guy from 1982 playing Conan the Barbarian. Okay? Or, The Terminator in 1986. Or, True Lies 10 years later in 1996. We don't have the only bankable butts in your seat type of person is Tom Cruise. And when he can come out with a movie such like a Top Gun Maverick, okay, and I know the pandemic had a lot to do with it. I'm not saying that. But that was one of the few movies that saved literally the box office in the theaters. Because otherwise, we're not talking about that. And that's just why I keep harping on it all the time. This is why Mission Impossible is going to be so big. But he's the only one that can do this. He's 61 years old. I mean, what other 61-year-old Liam Neeson's out of the game. Let's just call a spade a spade. Liam Neeson is out of the game, okay? We don't have guys like, Travolta and Cage anymore, okay? I mean, they had their fun. Him with Con Air, The Rock. He had, Face Off. So this is not, we don't have any more movie stars, okay? There are no names out there that go, I want to see that, even if it's bad. I think we really have to get and figure out who the next generation is going to be. Is it going to be a team? I would love to see Timothée Chalamet do an action movie. That would be fantastic. But he's not that kind of actor. He's doing movies like Dune and Wonka and everything else. Patterson, who's 36 years old, okay, made his bones with Twilight, did a lot of, small little indie films because he never wanted to be known as the Twilight guy. And then he gets cast in The Batman, which was a good movie. Okay? It was a really good movie. But let's face it, it wasn't because of Patterson. Okay? He had something to do with it. It was because it was a different Batman. This wasn't a old and grumpy Batman or a chiseled Batman. This was a young year 2 Batman, and Matt Reeves did a phenomenal job with that. Coupled with the villain in the Joker, in the Riddler, okay? So, we'll see where this goes. But there are no more action. There are no more movie stars anymore. And, everybody loves Harrison. Look, Harrison Ford has had a career that I think most actors would dream about. Okay? They would dream about his career. Okay? He really got his start in 1977 with Star Wars. He dominated 15 years at the box office. Dominated. From 1977, then you go to 1980 with Empire. Okay, which by the way, I couldn't believe it just turned 40 the other day. Guys, if you want to go back and watch For the Perfect Movies, I put it on the Twitter feed, but you actually guys can go back and watch it on the video. I sat down with Matthew Anderson and we talked all about why I believe and he believes Empire Strikes Back is a perfect movie. But he does Empire in 1980. Okay. He does Raiders of the Lost Ark in 81. He does Jedi in 83. He does Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom in 84. Okay. He does a couple of other films. He does Blade Runner 85 or 86. He even goes out and does, expands his range at 88 and does Witness, okay, or 89. 88 is Witness. 89 is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Going to the 90s, early 90s, he does Regarding Henry, okay? He does Patriot Games in 92 or 93. He does Clear and Present. He does Air Force One. Stop me if you it's getting bored, okay? He does Clear and Present Danger in 96. And that was his run. That was his 15-year run of being main man. I still remember to this day, one of those theater experiences you have. I went to go see Air Force One in the theater. And, of course, everybody knows the ending of it where he says, "Get off my plane." That whole audience just cheered. It just rose up. Some of them were right and cheering. That's what kind of effect he had on cinema. But we don't have that anymore. There's only one guy that can do that, and that's Tom Cruise. And it's going to be fascinating to see over the next 5, 6, 7 years who can carry a franchise. Is it going to be a Robert Pattinson? Who is James Gunn going to get for Superman? That's going to be extremely fascinating. Okay? Because that being said, Daisy Ridley, she's a young lady, but nobody knew her before nobody could, at least me personally, I could not name one film she was in before Star Wars. That's not to say I didn't like her. I never heard of her. Okay? She's in those biggest 7-8 years stretch of her life. Then she goes off and she's doing some other films, but that's it. It's really going to be interesting to see who steps up over the course of 5, 6, 7 years, and can they sustain it? Because if they do, they can have a long, illustrious career like a Harrison Ford, okay, and carry a couple of franchises. And the other thing that was brought up in the piece, and he's right about it too, is you have streaming today. So you may have look at Pedro Pascal, right? Pedro Pascal is about the only other actor I can think of off the top of my head that can do this. He could carry 2 franchises, okay? The Mandalorian, Star Wars, and The Last of Us. That's it. That's the only other guy I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, he's not a movie star. He's hot right now because he has that, but it's not like you see his face like a Harrison Ford, like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, like a Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, like these guys. So it's really interesting to see who's going to be able to do this. Anyways, guys, what do you think about that piece? Do you think we are just completely out of action stars today in Hollywood? And if not, who are some of the people that you watch? Do you think Tom Cruise is the last movie star? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to it.